Hey everybody, this is Deji.
And Chris.
Welcome to the Lot1 Podcast. On today's episode, we talk with Alexander Von David about English dubbing, script adaptation, directing commercials, hitches, and voice directing for anime. So, let's get into the show. We are with Alex Von David here, who is a voice director and a script adapter. So for the people at home who don't know who you are, can you give them the backstory?
I adapt and voice direct the English dubs for anime and sometimes for games. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been doing it since 2005.
Nice. How did you get into doing that specifically?
So I was directing commercials for a few years after film school, and once that career started sort of tapering off and disappearing, needed something to do to pay the bills, and with a limited skill set, I was kind of looking around, what the hell could I do? Helping a friend out from film school, Art Center. We went to Art Center in Pasadena. She was actually doing this. She'd been doing it for like a year or something. And she said, "Oh, the owner of the company I work for is looking for people who are not voice actors to do this voice directing thing." I think it just at the time, there were a lot of like low budget live action things to dub. And the voice actors, most of the people who do what I do are voice actors. And I'm not sure what the reason was why he was looking for someone who wasn't from that world. Maybe he thought that the adaptations were getting kind of stale. I'm not quite sure. Never really discussed it with him. But it was one of those opportunities where it was like, okay, well, we have this live action movie coming up. It's, 2 weeks of work in the studio, 2 weeks of 8 hours a day in the studio. I was only going to be voice directing. Someone else was going to be handling the script. A fantastic voice actor, Michael McConaughey, who's been in this business for years and years and years. It was one of those things where I wasn't doing anything. It was kind of filling a hole in my schedule that was getting larger and larger.
You hit the holes, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I tried it out and was like, oh, this is pretty cool, kind of interesting. It was, like putting together a puzzle, a very intricate puzzle.
Yeah.
That was in 2005, and the movie was called Sky High. And it's a Japanese movie. It's not the one with Kurt Russell.
Okay.
It's a low budget.
I got excited for a second. I was like,
no,
I
it
know
wasn't.
that.
Why would I do an English dub of Sky High
I
starring Kurt Russell?
Well,
So, no, it's this cool little low budget Japanese sword and sorcery fantasy type of thing with a female heroine. And I don't think anybody's seen it since 2005 or 2006.
okay.
I don't even
Yeah.
think my dub is still attached to it if it's streaming anywhere. That stuff usually, there's all sorts of weird contractual things based on who's distributing things. And so the dub kind of...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the dub sometimes disappears with the old distributor.
I mean, you've been directing voice for a long time now. Do you ever kind of dip your toe back in commercials, or is it strictly
No, once
dubbing? Okay,
once that career's over, it's over.
got it. Yeah. Okay.
Usually, what I was told at the beginning when I just graduated Art Center and was taking my spec reel around, one of my spec spots got into the AICP awards show, and Ron Hacohen, he was an executive producer at, I think it was called HKM. Yeah, he wanted to meet me. He was part of the little jury. And I went to him with a list of like 10 questions. And one of the questions, the last question of the 10 was, well, how long of a career am I going to have in this business? And he just point blank said, we've seen over the years that for most people coming into directing commercials, your lifespan is about 4 years. So,
Interesting.
Yeah. So I got like 8 or 9 years out of it ish.
Okay.
But
so you were basically geriatric at the end. You're 1 foot out the door, So.
Yeah, no, there's like seriously, there's only a handful of commercial directors who I was bidding against back in, early 2000s who are still, I think there's only 3 left. And all of those directors came from the advertising agency side and maintained their relationships with those people in the advertising industry. And so they had all sorts of connections that I didn't have just coming from film school. And they knew how to work an agency because they used to work at an agency. So they know what to say, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit of a leg up as far as that's concerned. Different mentality than someone like me from film school who's like, hey, what a great idea. Here's some extra ideas that you can throw in as a button, or how about if we mess with this? I'm thinking about those kinds of things.
So do you feel like, I know it's a little bit off topic because we really want to get into the dubbing, but do you feel like commercial directing, I mean, it's probably changed now, but is more of a transitionary thing for a director than it is like a permanent thing for a director?
Well, I think it probably depends on who the person is going into it. For me, when I started film school, I thought, oh yeah, I'd love to direct movies. But I found out pretty quickly that as far as like writing a screenplay, a feature-length screenplay and stuff, I didn't really have any ideas that would work for 90 minutes. Things happened halfway through school. My father got sick and died pretty quickly.
Oh, wow.
Mercifully. And then I was faced with having to support myself and my mom with the part-time job that I had while I was going to film school. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was happening all at once. The person that I was going to make a short film with, I'd come up with the script and, we'd worked on it together and stuff. I think it was going to be 30 minutes long or something. That person was going to finance it because all he wanted to do was produce. He passes me a note in class one day and says, you know what, I decided I wanted to direct. I was like, okay, so there goes the money for that because he was going to, his dad was going to fund this thing. And at break after that one class, another friend of mine who I actually got into PCC with, he says, hey, I've got $5,000 and no one's asking me to shoot 35. I want to shoot 35 and, get going here at school. So what do you want to do? And we sat down, talked, and he said, I want to shoot something at night with beams of light. And so I came up with this idea for Maglight, and we ended up, shooting it, and it was a fun experience. And then I said, oh, well, maybe commercials is something cool to do. Maybe I could have a career at doing commercials. And I came up with a bunch of, ideas pretty much right away. Ended up only shooting 3 more and then leaving school with this spec reel. It also didn't hurt that I was going to Art Center where Michael Bay, Tarsem, Zack Snyder, Larry Fong, it's like there's a huge list of people from Art Center. Yeah. And just having graduated from there back then opened a lot of doors for you. It certainly did for me, even advertising agencies, because their advertising department is, pretty well known. And so a lot of those agency producers and creatives were like, oh, let's hire an alum, But as we, again, with the career only lasted as long as it lasted because this was,
Yeah.
So just to clarify, when you say let's shoot 35, you mean 35 millimeter, right?
Oh, yeah, we were shooting film.
And then you shot for 5K with a buddy of yours or a classmate of yours, a spec commercial for Maglight, like the flashlight Maglights.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. So you left film school, and so because I feel like most people just try to do the route of like, I'm going to make like a short film or a couple of short films or whatever and leave with the reel. But you were like, no, I'm going to shoot a bunch of spec commercials.
These were commercials that were just for the reel. I wasn't going to sell them to anyone.
Just for reels. Wow.
Just for the reel. I think
nice.
I think one person, Michael Bay, he went down to Long Beach Harbor and rented vintage World War II destroyer, had everybody in period costumes, and I think it was a commercial for Coca-Cola. And I think he sent it to Coke, and they bought it, and they kept it.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was an amazing spot too. It's very much his style. I mean, his style, aside from a couple of things, has not changed from what he was doing at Art Center. It is very specific, and it has this just amazing sort of atmosphere and flair to it that only he can do. That's, and yeah, you could see it. I don't know if it's still available. If you go to Art Center and ask to see his old spec reel and stuff, you'll get your adult dose of Michael Bay as a kid.
Well,
That's
that's
awesome.
really cool.
The Lot1 Podcast is brought to you by the Tourist Hat Coffee Company. You know what keeps me running on those long film sets, Stagey?
What's that, Chris?
Coffee. And you know what's the worst thing ever?
A swift kick in the pants.
No, bad coffee. So that's why I choose Tourist Hat Coffee Company's high quality coffee beans. Their artisan roasted single origin coffee and handcrafted blends are so much better than those stale stuff you get from those other brands.
Yeah, those things are bad.
Tourist Hat Coffee Company's coffee is artisan roasted, micro roasted, single origin, and their small batch roaster that handcrafts their blends to maximize peak freshness upon delivery. Family owned and operated. What more could you ask for from a coffee company, Deji?
I literally can't think of anything else.
If you're still not sold, a portion of each purchase goes towards contributing to some of their favorite nonprofit organizations, such as Animation Dance Community, Seeds of Hope International, and Beautiful Gate Orphanage.
These guys are good.
Make Tourist Hat Coffee Company your new go-to quality coffee choice with our exclusive offer for you, the Lot1 Podcast listener.
Oh, listen up, guys.
First-time customers can use the code LOT1BOGO at checkout to receive one free bag of coffee when you buy two. That's right, Deji, buy two, get one free.
Whoa.
So head on over to touristhatcoffeecompany.com and use promo code LOT1BOGO at checkout. Again, that is LOT1 BOGO at checkout. Whether you work in the film industry or not and want a delicious cup of coffee, this is the perfect time to stock up on your favorite blends of coffee or try something new. I know I'll be brewing Tourist Hat on my sets moving forward, Deji. Again, that's promo code LOT1 BOGO, LOT1 BOGO at checkout to claim your buy two, get one free. Terms and conditions apply. Tourist Hat, coffee that fuels your adventure.
Film, that's what I started with. I was editing film in my last term at Art Center, which was 1997, winter of 97. That's when the film department at Art Center got one Avid. And so,
wow.
Our Avid class, the very first Avid class at Art Center was half a term long, and it was us, and we were like, what the heck is this? It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I wish I would love to, because I took a photography film class. I know there's a lot. Sorry, we'll stop getting off track. But a photography film class in college, and I loved it. I wish I could learn. I had the money to learn like 35 millimeter, because
I mean, ultimately, it's something money, else. Right? It's expensive.
Yeah,
it's very expensive.
Yeah,
very expensive for sure.
Yeah.
So when did you know that voice directing was the thing you wanted to do?
It was when the realization hit me that I probably wasn't going to be directing any commercials anytime soon again, and didn't have any other choice. So many people in the entertainment industry must have the same kind of experience where you're sitting there going, wow, I trained for this. This is what I've been hoping for and dreaming for. For me, it wasn't necessarily commercials, but I was hoping that it would springboard me into features like it did for all of our famous alumni. But once I realized that wasn't going to happen, and this other thing that I was doing was actually kind of fun, it paid nothing compared to, working on commercials, but I could survive. It was one of those things where I thought, well, would I be satisfied doing this for a while? And the answer was yes. It's fun. It's challenging. Some days it's a drag. Some projects are a little too challenging. They become very frustrating very quickly, especially in the adaptation process. But ultimately, I'm not going to get rich doing this. No way. But I feel like I do it pretty well now. And I think I do a good job protecting the intention of the creators in Japan, as well as helping the actors, through the story and the beats of the story, and helping them have fun. And in doing that, that's kind of fun for me too. Commercials, for me, stopped being creative at the end. That also helped my decision too. This became a little bit more creative than actually working on a commercial. It's weird to say, because in a commercial you think, oh, you're directing a commercial, you get to pick the shots and you get to, pick out the wardrobe and makeup and hair, and you get to have a voice in casting too. You have to say, who you like, who you don't like. After September 11, 2001, the business changed. And my specialty up to that point was doing comedy dialogue. And suddenly comedy changed. It became less aggressive, less in your face, less wild. There were still a couple of agencies doing that, but they got tamed real fast once their clients started bailing on them. So it was stuff like that was going on. And then the production company that I was signed with also did something that a lot of production companies were doing back then, which was just closing their doors and not paying anybody, regardless of contracts. And yes, I'm still a member of the DGA. I was a member of the DGA then. DGA couldn't do anything for me. Could do anything for any of us. The lawyers at the DGA were just like, yeah, we can't do anything for you. Sorry. If whoever owns this production company ever opens another production company and want to become signatory, we'll send the federal marshals in to grab all their stuff, auction it off, and you'll get a percentage of that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you essentially found a home then in dubbing. That's
big time.
Big time, which is really, you got that. That's really cool. And that, what the story you told at the beginning is, this really sounds like it was like you were at the right place at the right time and you knew the right people.
Yeah.
As it is in most things, it's a lot of luck. Yeah, being in the right place at the right time with the skill set that someone needs. And then, but definitely a lot of luck.
You say you feel like it's more creative. I have so many questions of if it's a dub from Japanese, obviously you have to keep the same, what is occurring. You can't make creative choices of now, unless I'm wrong, this scene now is more dramatic or whatever. How does that translate from Japanese to English of is your job to make sure the actors are copying exactly the same emotional beats, or do you get some creative liberty? Let's dig into that a little bit, because I'm so interested.
Sure. So the script is actually more important, because the way the lines are phrased, the actual words and phrasing that the actors are performing in English, those help with the intention as well. As far as directing, voice directing goes, because I prefer to adapt the stuff that I direct or voice direct, I already know the story, and I can tell the actor, okay, this is the scene where you're really hungry and you need a sandwich real bad. So we'll preview the first line in that scene. That's just a very simple bit of context that'll give an actor. Sandwich, you want it bad, you're super starving. We'll preview the first line. Sometimes if there's 2 or 3 lines that this character has that are one right after another, we'll preview that run for the voice actor. By this point, the voice actor should be familiar with the character, what they want, because I've already said, hey, this is your character. They're the show I'm working on right now, Don to Don. You're a 16-year-old girl. You have latent supernatural powers because you're from a family of spirit mediums. But you are more like a down-to-earth girl. You don't take any crap from anybody. You kind of snarl when you talk. If someone's, upsetting you or something like that. And hopefully if the voice actor is into doing homework, they already looked up a bit of their character and what their character's about and stuff. And those conversations happen much faster than they just did right now. So we'll listen to the Japanese performance. We'll also be watching the picture, checking out the mouth flaps. The actor has my script in front of them. Each line has a line number, a time code next to that, an in code, their character's name, and then the line. And sometimes in the line, whenever the mouth pauses for 2 frames or more, it's called a hitch. And hitches can be anything from that fast to that slow, and maybe even a second long. It's up to my preference on whether to combine lines into one, and then I'll indicate hitches in the script using different symbols that signify different beats or measures of time. So the actor's seeing all this on their script, a script they've never seen before, in a show that has not come out, so they haven't seen it before. And they're previewing the line and they're watching the picture. And sometimes they'll ask for another preview because maybe some of those hitches didn't make sense on the first pass, or maybe they missed a beat in whatever the Japanese actor or seiyuu was doing. And then we'll go, okay, you ready to record? Sure, okay. So we hit record. The recording engineer has laid 3 beeps right before the first line. The imaginary 4th beep is when the mouth opens up for the first time, and then we're off.
Hey, filmmakers, Christopher here. Ever wonder what goes down when the mics are off? Dive into the Lot1 Podcast after show exclusively on our Patreon. Your VIP pass to untold stories, exclusive industry insights, and more. Get early access to our episodes, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and the chance to connect with fellow filmmakers. It's not just a podcast, it's a film fiesta waiting to happen. Ready to join the party? Subscribe at patreon.com/the Lot1 Podcast. Thanks for being a part of the journey. I was going to ask even further the questions with the hitches. You said, like, sometimes there's not direct translation. So, like, you could be in the middle of a sentence and it just, like, you have to stop. So, like, that's crazy that you have to deal with that. So sometimes, I'm guessing, and this is really a question of, like, so the English actors sometimes have to figure out where's a good spot to pause if the translation's not 1-to-1, or, like, is that like a difficulty you have to do?
So again, I go back to the script. The script is adapting a script is really, really hard. And it's hard because of this, what you're just bringing up. It's like these pauses that can seem unnatural in some dubs that you watch. I work really hard to make those pauses happen in natural places, whether a character's, putting a comma there or ending a sentence, full stop, and then starting another, taking a breath, those kinds of things. It's not a translation, it's an adaptation. I'm given the translation, and the translation does not have any of these breaks or beats in it. Depending on who the translator is who's working on the property, your translation can be completely mystifying. Like, literally, like it's like a circle. Somebody in one sentence, I have seen translations literally talk a circle in one sentence. And I have to go to a Japanese speaking person to say, hey, please listen to this, look at the script and tell me what they're talking about. Because I don't understand. That happens sometimes. The script, if it's done right, the hitches will make sense to the actor as they're previewing the line, because usually they're thinking and probably mouthing the words as they're listening to the Japanese, but they're paying attention to, like, a couple different things all at once. They're paying attention to the intensity of the performance, how, emotional it is. They're also, mouthing along probably with the words and taking those little pauses in the hitches as they're hearing it in Japanese too. And hopefully as they're reading the lines, they're, noticing, oh, okay, that can be a comma there. Oh, I see why Alex put an ellipses, a ... or something, and a little apostrophe. That's a very small hitch or something. And so they're thinking about those things. And then, of course, after we preview, sometimes there's a question. Hey, I didn't see that. Oh, that's, this. I'll explain to them. The script is super important to make a dub work well. The adapted script, I should say. Whatever work the person who is adapting is putting into it, that's going to make the life of the voice director, the actor, the recording engineer much easier. It's something that nobody really talks about. Whenever anyone talks about me, they speak about me as a voice director, which is only half of what I do.
Yeah.
I prefer adapting the scripts that I voice direct, for anime anyway, because it takes away all of that guesswork for me and the engineer. Like, I know going in how this line is going to work because I've lived with that script for so long to make this episode work. It takes me about 4 days at a minimum to adapt 25 minutes of an episode.
And that's recording with the actors, or is that you sitting with the script?
4 days to adapt the script. One episode, depending on how many characters there are, one episode could probably take about 2.5, 3 days to record.
Okay.
But it takes me at least a minimum of 4 days to adapt one episode, just because
So you're on these for a long time then.
Well, as long as the schedule permits. It's a 12 episode series, could last about 4 months. But, caveat, I'm not getting paid hourly. I'm getting paid a flat rate. I'm a freelancer.
Right.
When I'm adapting a script, that's when I'm spending the most time with the episode. The recording is, we can only record for 8 hours because, there's an engineer there. People get tired. The studio closes, for the night, that kind of stuff. Support staff's gone home. So recording is like 8-hour days with a 1-hour lunch usually. But adapting a script, I'm working on those sometimes 14, 16 hours a day for 4 days.
Wow.
It depends on how complicated.
That's a lot.
Well, it depends on how complicated the hitches are. I spent half a day on one line. I don't know how to make it work. I'm thinking in terms of, can I change how the line preceding it sets it up? Or how the line after it pays it off? Do I flip lines? Can I do that? What is the animation telling me? What is the sound design telling me? You asked why I thought this was more creative than commercials in some ways, and this is one of them. You have to figure out how to get out of this box to get back into the right box, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a big puzzle. I completely understand now. Yeah,
it's a huge puzzle.
Are you doing this usually alone, or do you have a team with you?
No, it's just me. When I'm adapting scripts, it's just me. I worked on something for Netflix last year. It's called Onmyoji. And for that one, I asked a friend of mine, an amazing voice actor, also an amazing adapter and director, Lucian Dodge. I asked him if he would adapt the scripts because I was just burnt out. I needed time to just sit and go ride my skateboard, go play my guitars or basses. I just needed time to just get out of my head because I've been going hard for over a decade now, just adapting, directing. And I was still dealing. My mom died a couple years ago in the middle of a job, and I couldn't take a break. I had to keep going, otherwise lose the job, lose the paycheck. I was still going through that as well. I just needed a break. Lucian, I knew with his sensibilities, he's as precise as can be with his choices. I knew that we'd be in good hands in the studio if he was in charge of that script. Actually, ever since I started, that was the only time that an entire show was adapted by someone else. I've usually done it all myself. The directing is the easy part. The directing is the easy part and the fun part. You're around people all day. Voice actors, the sessions last anywhere from 15 minutes to 3 or 4 hours with one person at a time. But you're around people. You're working with a recording engineer. You get to, go out in the world. As far as adapting scripts go, I'm locked in here and in here. And it's not fun. It's not fun, but it has to be done, and it has to be done well. Otherwise,
it pays off.
It pays off in the studio. I think the actors, definitely benefit from it. Certainly, the fans who watch it. Well, hopefully, the fans who watch it will also benefit from all that time because they can watch something and not be thrown by odd phrasing that shows up suddenly. Something that has not been established with a particular character. Odd phrasing that just happens because the mouth flaps are a little different and there's a weird hitch in there or something like that. It's stuff like that.
You were saying before that there was only one actor at a time. Why can't two actors be, playing off of each other during a scene?
So I've heard they've tried that, but it didn't work because, well, number one, you're paying two actors to be there at the same time, and you have to preview the scene quite a bit. so that they get the timing right between them, each other. It seems to be much more practical and efficient and financially better to just have one actor in at a time. As long as everybody is playing by the rules, aka honoring the Japanese performances, the thought is that all the conversations will lock in and make sense and feel like everyone's in the same room speaking with each other. That's the hope. But I'll go back to the script. I'll go back to the script again, and depending on how that script is adapted, that also aids in having the conversation flow. A lot of times when I'm working with an actor, they're the first person in to record a scene, so nobody else has been recorded in English. If one character speaks to their character, I'll read them in as I think that line should be read, and then they can go ahead once the beeps happen and everything, they can keep that in their head and they can respond. Call and response.
If one actor already finished all their stuff, do you play back for the other actor, like to help with that, or is it just you doing it? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. No, we always do it as long as the engineers got that other character unmuted. But usually, I request that whoever's speaking with whoever we're recording, or whichever character is speaking, whatever character we're recording, we'll have that unmuted, and we'll, even though we're previewing Japanese, there are times when I will preview the English and go, okay, so just to let you know, this is what that line's going to sound like. So we'll preview that line, that other actor's line for the actor, so they can sort of center themselves and get in sort of the groove for whatever it is they're going to respond.
Hey there, you look parched. Come sip the Earl Grey about behind the scenes goss only on our Patreon at patreon.com/the Lot1 Podcast. Pinkies up.
Is there ever a time where when you're prepping the script, you decide, I want to do this actor first, or record with this actor first?
No, it's really rare. So with the company that hires me the most, they have their own casting director, and that person makes all the casting decisions with the client. Rarely have they ever reached out to me to ask my opinion. And as far as scheduling goes, it usually doesn't matter. However, there were times when it did. And one time an actor, Michelle Ruff, we were working on Sword Art Online season 2. It was a nasty scene where a character played by Johnny Young Bosch was going to attack Michelle's character, and Michelle wanted to react. So she requested that he record first, which he did. And then she was able to react off of what he was doing, or his character was doing. I know I did it once. I asked scheduling at Bang Zoom if we could record someone first. And I think it was for a show called Erased, the anime, not the live action. But usually it doesn't really matter. Sometimes what happens is I'll find out that perhaps what we recorded with one actor doesn't work with the color they put on the performance, even though it matches the Japanese performance, technically, how they ended the line. Maybe it doesn't work as much now because someone else we recorded in that scene speaking to them did something different. So same intention, different color. Sometimes I'll put a little note there, and we'll go back when we get that actor in the studio again, and we'll re-record that one line now with the other character in English speaking to them, and get the right attitude landing.
Does that happen because you like that? I was like, sometimes it's like, I like this delivery better, so we're going to bring back the other person to redo it to make it sound better, or vice versa.
It's usually something like that, or perhaps we find out either from the client or from someone else working at wherever we're working at. We'll find out, the translation was wrong, so the adaptation is wrong, so I have to rewrite. So it could be something like that. That happens all the time, actually, where suddenly it's like, actually, this is a plural. Really? Oh, okay. Well, that changes the whole scene. We're talking about multiple sandwiches, not one. So
I see. Wow, it really is like a puzzle. That is true. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. We are out of time. Before we go, though, Chris has a question that he asks all guests. Now, here's a special question.
If you had one piece of advice for anyone who wanted to be a dub director or voice director, what would that one piece of advice be?
Well, it's the same advice I've given to the occasional fan who asks, you do it because you love it or love something about it? Because doing this job, it has a ton of frustrations attached to it, things that you cannot control. And if you don't love doing it, probably going to be miserable, and your work is going to not be very good just because you're going to be working so fast just to get out of there and go home and do the things that you really want to do, like make a movie or something like that, which is probably the reason why, people who are adapting and directing dubs are usually voice actors. Voice actors don't work all the time, especially when they're just getting their foot in the door in this industry. That's really rare when that happens. These production companies, these studios that do this stuff, they don't mind hiring them because the voice actor understands hitches. And if they're a fan of anime, and they must have watched a lot of dubs to want to be an actor in dubs. So the idea is as well, they know the tropes and the archetypes. The learning curve isn't as steep for them. And it's something they can do, a script here, a script there, an episode here, a show here or there, or whatever, and it'll come out adequate. That's what the studios hope. The I's will be dotted and the T's will be crossed, and we can present it to the client and say, look, everything's in sync. The mix sounds great. Everybody's on mic. And, all of the emotional beats. When the Japanese actor got louder, we got louder. When they got sad, we got sad. Can you complain? That's kind of,
yeah.
But I would say, don't go into this business thinking you're going to get rich. If you want to adapt and direct, there's no clout. So if you're a clout chaser, good luck. Again, nobody really cares that I do what I do, except maybe the voice actors I work with in the studios and clients that I work with.
Yeah.
Because they see how hard I work to help them look good.
Well, the consumer of the content you are creating cares about it. They just don't realize they care about it.
Right.
That's a good point.
Job.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And it's always, for me personally, it's always whenever I hear somebody react to something that I'm working on in a good way, because God knows there's a lot of people who react very negatively to just the idea of an English dub for anything. It makes me think all those hours I spent working on that adaptation really paid off because they understood what this character was about, or what this scene was about, or what the show's themes are about. Something was clarified for them that reading it using the subtitles, which is another adaptation of a translation, believe it or not, the subtitles didn't quite give them that. Or maybe they understand Japanese but not 100%, and so if they're watching it in Japanese, they may miss a lot of what's going on. That has been a comment too. I've heard from some of the people I work with who are Japanese. This has happened on several mixes. One recently, where after the mix, I hear that I didn't understand this until just now in English. And this is a Japanese person saying this. Bilingual, of course, perfectly bilingual, but I kind of go, okay, good. I did my job well. Pat my back.
Yeah. Nice.
So
wow.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing.
Thanks for having me on.
Exactly what you do. It's
weird.
So interesting. It's like
it's a very unique thing. That's why I was
super
like,
unique and niche.
This very specific people's like, hey, tell someone who wants to be a voice actor. I'm sure there's people out there, but I was like, I don't know how many. It's crazy. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Alex.
And we're gonna continue the conversation. In the after show. So,
sure.
Head on over to that after show.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having me.
Bye. You're welcome.
Yeah. Bye. That's a wrap for today's Lot1 podcast. Huge thanks to our supporter, Tourist Hat Coffee Company. Remember to use the discount code Lot1BOGO for your exclusive buy two, get one free deal. Again, discount code is Lot1BOGO, LOT1BOGO at checkout for your exclusive deal. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed that episode, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, and leave a review and share it with your best friend, The Martian, because it really helps others find us. Big shout out to our producer, Mina Vazarian, and our editor, Carlos Luna. If you're not a part of our exclusive Patreon community yet, head on over to patreon.com/the Lot1 Podcast for early access, bonus content like the after show, and much more. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to our incredible Patreon supporters because your backing keeps the Lot1 Podcast lights on. Connect with us on Instagram and TikTok at the Lot1 Podcast for behind the scenes content and updates. We are now accepting listener mail, so if you got any questions for us or our guests, drop us a line. Also, if you're interested in finding out more about Lot1 Productions and all we got going on, just check us out at lot1productions.com. Until next time, keep those creative fires burning, dream big, and remember, the filmmaking journey is a ride worth taking. See you next week.